Hey, good morning, friends. Welcome to The Bright Side. I am Pharmacist Ben, and thanks for joining us. 844-236-6010 is our number if you have questions, comments, success stories you'd like to share, or if you just want to contribute to the conversation. We love hearing from you. 844-236-6010. We'll be talking to Dr. Greg Mangione about functional medicine. Dr. Mangione is the physician at the Mangione Clinic, and he has an expertise in functional medicine as well as autoimmunity. We'll talk autoimmunity and functional medicine with Dr. Greg Mangione. Also touch a little bit, hopefully, if Dr. Greg is up for it, about the vaccine and the current viral infection. That'll be at the bottom of the hour. Dr. Greg Mangione of the Mangione Clinic. And we'll get to your calls in our next segment, 844-236-6010, 844-236-6010. If you want to purchase longevity products, head to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. You can also call 866-735-2470 and ask about joining the Brightside Ben team for a one-time fee. You can be in business for yourself, get your products at the wholesale price, and start a longevity business. If you're an entrepreneur, it's an ideal way to make some money. It's an ideal way to start a business without having to invest a lot of money. And it's a great way to enter into the nutrition business, the billion-dollar nutrition business, and help change the world with the power of nutrition. Help change the world at the most fundamental level there is, which is the level of good individual health. Call 866-735-2470 or hit the Join the Team link at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. 844-236-6010 is our number today, and we'll talk to Dr. Greg Mangione about autoimmunity, functional medicine, and hopefully a little bit about the vaccine at the bottom of the hour. All right, so we've been talking about oxygen and alkalinization. Last we spoke, we were discussing the somewhat confusing idea that you want the skin and the digestive system to be acidic and the blood to be alkaline, slightly alkaline. The pH scale goes from 0 to 14. 7 to 14 is alkaline, 0 to 7 is acid, and the blood needs to be held pretty tightly at 7.38. That's pretty tight. At 7.37, you don't feel so good. At 7.2, you feel lousy. At 7, you're in the hospital. Acid blood is associated with illness. Acid blood is associated with diseases. Acid blood is associated with poor cell health. And it's not necessarily the acid that is causing the disease, although it's true at a low pH when the blood is at a low pH, it doesn't function as effectively. But it's more like when cells die, they release acidity. When cells are stressed, they're more acidic. So it's more like the acid is a sign than it is a cause, although it probably is a vicious circle in the sense that at low pH the body does not function and the cells don't function as well as they should and the blood doesn't function as well as it should. But you don't want to look at it that way. You don't want to look at it like we're going to raise the pH of the blood by taking supplements or by eating specific foods. The most important way to raise the blood pH or to alkalinize the blood is oxygen. Yesterday I got an email from ML who says, this is actually sent to Critical Health News. Pharmacist Ben Fuchs, as a guest on Coast to Coast AM, often advises making the body less acidic and more alkaline. He also recommends using apple cider vinegar to help digestion. But isn't apple cider vinegar an acid? Isn't vinegar a common name for acetic acid? So how would ingesting apple cider vinegar be a good thing if you're also trying to make the body less acidic? Please clarify. And this is what I was kind of getting at yesterday. It is confusing, this idea that you want the digestive tract, the digestive system has to be acidic. Hydrochloric acid has a low pH, and the hydrochloric acid in the low pH is very functional. The low pH of the stomach helps us break down proteins. It helps activate enzymes. And this low pH is also important for the activation of bile as the food drops out of the stomach into the intestine. If the munched up food or the crushed up food, it's called chyme, C-H-Y-M-E, this mulch, this kind of sloppy mess that is our food after the acid and the enzymes have reacted to it, has a low pH, and that low pH, that acidic quality, turns on bile. As the food drops into the intestine, that low pH activates alkaline, not just bile, but alkaline enzymes. If you ever, when you were a kid, if you ever combined acid and alkaline, say you did lemon juice, we used to do lemon juice and baking soda. If you ever mix lemon juice and baking soda together, you get a fizzing effect. As the acid hits the base, it goes whoosh. and it kind of bubbles up and fizzes. You can use this technique, by the way, to clean your dishes. If you have stuff that's stuck onto pans, you squeeze it with something acidic like apple cider vinegar or just vinegar, plain vinegar, or lemon juice, and then you hit it with baking soda. The fizzing effect will loosen the grease and the grime and the oils that are stuck to your pan. Well, that same kind of effect happens in the intestine. As the chyme drops into the intestine through the pyloric sphincter, as it's called, the stomach, the opening between the stomach and the beginning of the intestine, there's a fizzing effect that happens as the bile and the alkaline enzymes hit the acid from the munched up food, the chyme, and that fizzing effect liberates various nutrients, specifically fats. But that has to, in order for that to occur, the chyme has to be acidic. The chyme gets acidic from the hydrochloric acid. If you're not making enough hydrochloric acid, that's not going to happen as effectively, thus the importance of things like apple cider vinegar. On the other hand, you want the blood to be alkaline. Apple cider vinegar, interestingly, and for that matter lemon, can support alkalinity. It's not going to make the blood alkaline, but it can support alkalinity because you get minerals from the apple cider vinegar. You get electrolytes from the apple cider vinegar as well as the lemon juice. Bottom line is just because you want the stomach to be acidic doesn't mean you want the blood or the blood to be acidic. And the skin also, by the way, has to be acidic. So just because you want the skin acidic and the digestive juices to be acidic, that doesn't mean that you don't want the blood acidic, that you want the blood acidic. You want the blood to be alkaline, 7.38. And I know it's confusing, but just think of the different parts of the body, the different compartments of the body have to have different pHs. Anyway, best way to keep the pH alkaline is to respirate correctly, which is not something we think of necessarily as doing correctly. We all think, well, we know how to breathe, we know how to respirate, but no, we don't. Correct respiration, if you want to do it right, you need to practice. I use an app called Breathing Zone every morning, BREETHING, Breathing Zone. And it's an app you get on your smartphone, and it kind of walks you through the breathing process. There's a voice that goes, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And I do it for 10 minutes every morning. I'm going to try to do it more than that, but there's a sort of practice that you have to do in order to know how to breathe. Effective respiration involves both the inhalation phase and the exhalation phase. Foods can be helpful because they have minerals, as I said, but this whole idea about acid-forming foods and alkaline foods, meat, protein is supposed to be acid-forming, vegetables are alkalinizing. This is all overrated. Yes, you probably want to have minerals, that's for sure, and electrolytes, that's true. And protein can be slightly acid-forming. But if you're respirating correctly and your kidneys are working correctly, you're not going to have to worry about acid-forming foods and alkaline-forming foods, as long as you're healthy. If you're not healthy, then you want to be a little bit careful, especially if your kidneys aren't functioning as they should, because the kidneys are the main organ that's responsible for controlling pH of the blood. I guess you could throw the lungs in there as well because of the importance of respiration. All right, we'll continue when we come back from our break. I'm Pharmacist Ben. 844-236-6010 is our number. All right, we are back on the bright side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. All our lines are open for you. 844-236-6010 is our number. We've got Dr. Greg Monchion coming up at the bottom of the hour. We're going to talk functional medicine, what exactly functional medicine is, as well as autoimmunity and maybe we'll get to talk about autoimmunity and vaccine, and vaccines in general. Adjuvants and vaccinations are one of the major reasons why we go into an autoimmune response, or one of the reasons. I don't know about major reason, but anything you put into the blood can trigger an autoimmune response. And an autoimmune response, contrary to conventional wisdom, is not the body attacking itself, the body going crazy. It's the body trying to clear out toxicity, basically, except it perceives, and it turns out that the structures of the body are toxic sometimes, at least toxic to the immune system. They're foreign to the immune system. Why are parts of the body, the nerves or the adrenal glands or the connective tissue, perceived as the enemy, perceived as being toxic to the body, perceived as being something that's a distortion that shouldn't be in the body? It's because of toxicity, because something has gotten into the bloodstream. Something has gotten into the blood and then dumped off in the various tissues. So autoimmunity is not the body going crazy. It's not the body going rogue. It's not the immune system not knowing what it's doing. That's kind of the perception, and that's what we're led to believe. That's what the medical model wants us to believe, that the body attacks itself because it's gone crazy. It's gone rogue. No, it's doing its job. It sees distortion. It sees something that looks foreign. Why is there distortion? Why is there something that looks foreign? Because some toxicity has gotten into the bloodstream. Period. Autoimmune responses are the end result of toxicity that is getting into the body. It is not complicated, people. The medical model wants us to think, well, we don't know what causes autoimmunity. We don't know why the body goes crazy. We don't know why the immune system just goes rogue on itself. It attacks itself. Bad, silly, stupid body. We need to correct that. We need to fix that because the body's stupid. That's sort of the underlying philosophy of conventional medicine, that the body is wrong and we are right, that the body is stupid and we are smart, that the body is broken and we can fix it. No, the body's not stupid, the body's not wrong, and the body is not broken. It's doing its job, but we're just filling it with toxicity. That's my problem with sticking a vaccine into your blood. That's the fundamental problem. I don't want to get off on this particular version of the vaccine, mRNA vaccine, which is experimental. I don't even like calling it a vaccine. It's experimental. Just the idea of sticking toxins into your blood or into your body to make it better doesn't make sense. That's my problem with prescription drugs. That's my problem with drugs in general. Putting toxicity into the body to make it better fundamentally a priori doesn't make sense. If you have to, for emergency reasons, perhaps, and that's maybe why pain pills and antibiotics have their place. But even then, you're playing with fire. Antibiotics clearly have saved many millions and millions of lives, and most people will take antibiotics and be done with it after 2 weeks and not even know they took it. But in the long run, you're playing with fire. We have 2 million cases or more of patients with bacterial resistance, infections that are resistant to antibiotics, bacterial infections that antibiotics don't help. What are we going to do when we have more of them? It's increasing every year. We have more and more patients who are dealing with infections that antibiotics don't address. What are we going to do when antibiotics don't work anymore? So you're playing with fire with any kind of medical intervention that involves putting toxicity into the body. That's my problem with using a vaccine, and there's no way anybody can dispute that. You can dispute whether there's enough toxicity or whether there's enough side effects or whether there's enough health challenges that are linked to the vaccine to make it a problem. You can dispute the statistics or dispute the numbers, but you can't dispute the fact that putting poison into the body to make it better doesn't make sense. All right, we'll talk to Dr. Greg Mangione at the bottom of the hour about functional medicine, about autoimmune disease, and also perhaps about vaccinations. 844-236-6010 is our number. All our lines open. Let's continue talking about this idea of pH in the blood. The main organs that are involved in controlling the pH of the blood, which needs to be held tightly at 7.38, are the kidneys and the lungs. You could probably throw the brain in there because the brain kind of controls everything. But basically it's respiration, and then the kidneys will release various electrolytes and ammonia and various substances to kind of control the pH. The main way to keep your pH healthy is to respirate and to keep your cells healthy, because when cells die, they open up and explode and spew out their interiors, and their interiors tend to be acidic. And this is one of the main reasons why blood pH will drop, is because cells are dying, because cells are under duress. When cells are also under duress, they'll also release acid, and acidosis is a serious health problem. So the best way to keep your blood pH where it needs to be is to respirate and keep the body healthy, and then let the body do its work. Foods have a certain role to play, but that's not really the main. That's not really where pH is going to be controlled. And then there's the whole idea of the double-edged nature, the dual-edged nature of oxygen. Oxygen obviously is important, but it's also oxidizing. Oxidation is this nasty reaction that oxygen has with tissues. That's why oxygen is really kind of dangerous stuff. Our atmosphere is about 21% oxygen. If it was 22% oxygen or 23% oxygen, we would have a problem. our atmosphere has to be at around 21% oxygen, because too much is just as much of a problem as too little. Too much has an oxidizing effect. This is where antioxidants become important. We've all heard about antioxidants. We all know antioxidation is an important health and anti-aging strategy. So what exactly is happening here? Is oxygen good? Is oxygen bad? Well, it's both. As with all things biochemical and nutritional, it's not really that simple. Oxygen has a good side and a bad side. Earth's atmosphere, which is made up of mostly nitrogen, by the way, is just 21% oxygen. If it contained more, we'd have a problem. If it contained less, we'd have a problem. 21% is the sweet spot for the lives of human beings and other organisms because of this dual nature, because of this good and bad nature that oxygen has. Oxygen, the oxygen atom, is very, very active. The oxygen atom is a thief. It steals things. And it specifically steals electrons, or steals energy, we'll say. It steals energy or electrons from other atoms. And in this process, it changes those other atoms. This stealing property is what we call oxidation. And you can see when something is oxidized, when oxygen has stolen a piece of energy, i.e. an electron, by a color change. The classic example of a color change that's the end result of oxygen theft or oxidation is when you put a piece of iron in an oxygen-containing medium like water. Water is H2O, two pieces of hydrogen and one piece of oxygen. If you put a piece of iron in H2O, over time, the oxygen in the water is going to steal energy from the iron, and it will create a color change. Iron is particularly good at liberating this piece of energy. This is why we use iron. This is why iron can be used to conduct things. This is why iron is magnetic. And this color change, of course, is called rust. Well, that same phenomena happens inside the body. We rust like that. And an apple is another example of rusting. You leave an apple out in the air exposed to oxygen, and it also will rust. Just like human beings will rust. Human beings will oxidize. That's why antioxidants are important. All right, we'll continue with this discussion on our next Bright Side episode. Dr. Greg Mongion will be with us.
No one.
Okay, we are back on the Bright Side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Thanks for joining us. We're on the air Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 Pacific, and 10 to 11 Central Time, and 24/7 on the archive page, brightsideben.com. Also have a search engine at brightsideben.com, and you can check out benfuchsarchives.com for our older archives with a search engine. Thanks, Peter, for setting that up. And then don't forget to check out our Truth Skin Health products at truthtreatments.com. Never any preservatives, fragrances, fillers, waxes, emulsifiers, nothing your skin doesn't need or doesn't want in any of our True Skin Health products, all formulated in my compounding pharmacy for healing wounds. Health equals beauty, and when you heal a wound, you beautify the skin. That's what Truth Treatments are all about, and that's why we have 1,700 plus 4- and 5-star reviews, which you can check out at Truth Reviewed, with a D, truthreviewed.com, and truthtreatments.com for our Truth Skin Health products. Truthtreatments.com, truthtreatments.com. All right, I'm looking forward to speaking to our guest today. Dr. Greg Mongion of the Mongion Clinic is a functional medicine expert and an autoimmune specialist. He specializes in autoimmunity as well as chronic infections. We're going to talk about functional medicine. We'll talk about autoimmunity, and hopefully we'll talk a little bit about vaccinations. Please welcome to the Bright Side, Dr. Greg Mongion. Hey, Dr. Greg.
Hey, Ben. Such an honor to be on with you today.
Yes, great to be on with you as well. Did I say your name correct? Mongion, is that right?
It's a great telemarketing name. It's actually Mojan, like Dijon mustard. So Dr. Greg is what we go by for a good reason.
We'll call you Dr. Greg of the Mongion Clinic. Where is your clinic, by the way?
So our brick and mortar practice is in the South Metro of Minneapolis, and we've also treated people virtually now for almost a decade. So kind of regardless of where you are, you can get good care.
Okay, good deal. Now, as I understand it, functional medicine is medicine that kind of monitors the various metrics of the body, blood pressure, blood glucose, thyroid functioning, and then treats the body based on those measurements. Is that too simplistic?
Well, it's not, and that's really the idea. So functional medicine, you always have to compare it to something, right? So the comparison would be to like allopathic or traditional medicine. And the premise behind allopathic medicine is that we run a lab and we have this baseline of numbers, and if it's high or low, most medical clinicians are trained to use drugs or surgery as an intervention. the flip side of that, functional medicine gets to ask the famous question, why? So we run the same labs, we look at them through a different lens, and then we assume that the body is intelligent, that the body responds appropriately. And then instead of saying, here's something for your symptom, we look at why did your body respond this way? And then we take an approach that, and here's the thing, it's not, I tell people there is no easy button, there is no magic pill, but your body is responding perfectly. So for a lot of people that find functional medicine, many of them have gone down the allopathic route. They've had the labs, and maybe either they don't respond well to pharmaceutical intervention, or they just don't feel like it's addressing the root cause. And that's really the conversation around functional medicine is root cause, the true why behind a person's having a symptom or a diagnosis.
So the difference between functional and conventional medicine, or one of the differences, is this why question, is why is it happening? Rather than just fixing the symptoms, is going to answering the why and then addressing it at that level?
Absolutely, and that's the reality of it. Is just that premise, that biological premise that the body is created to be self-regulating and self-healing, and then the other thing is we don't throw a bunch of pills, potions, and motions at people. Functional medicine's approach uses things like breath work, like meditation.
Wow.
I mean, my goodness, there's 16,500 pieces of research right now on meditation. And some people are like, that seems a little woo-woo to me. But here's the scoop. There's pallets full of research on it. We talk about diet, and I hate that word because when somebody hears the word diet, they think, oh my gosh, what's this guy going to take away from me that I love? And so ultimately it's about finding a sustainable lifestyle that can address the root cause and then allow a person to live the life that I believe we're designed to live.
I love this idea that the body knows what it's doing. We were just actually, before you went on the air, we were just talking about this. The idea that the body knows what it's doing, but medicine sees the body as inherently broken or inherently doomed. And so it tries to just stave off our demise, basically. But what you're talking about is this idea that the body doesn't attack, is not attacking us. It's somehow operating in its own best interest as it sees its own best interest. And the classic example of this is autoimmunity. Like, we think of autoimmunity as the body going rogue, like it's just attacking itself. That's what conventional medicine will have you believe, is that the body attacks itself. It doesn't know what it's doing. The stupid immune system that's been around for billions of years, basically, is so dumb. It's so stupid, it just attacks the nerves, or it just attacks the pancreas, or just attacks the connective tissue. But address autoimmunity from a functional medicine perspective, or at least from your perspective.
Yeah, I appreciate that because, so for example, Johns Hopkins, one of the leading medical foundations in the world, their website says autoimmune disease happens when the body's natural defense systems can't tell the difference between your own cells and foreign cells, causing the body to mistakenly attack normal cells.
Mistakenly.
Now, here's the scoop, right? Mistakenly. We're 75 trillion cells, and my neurology friends tell us that our brain processes 3 million bits of information every second.
How's that happen?
This is telling me mistakenly.
Right.
So
the doctor, my physician's much smarter than that, of course.
Right. So they run these tests, the same tests that I run. We do look at them through a little bit different lens, and what their determination is with autoimmunity is, I'm so sorry, your immune system has gone rogue. I need to turn it off or turn it down.
Yeah, you're right.
So they use like DMARDs or immune modulating drugs, sometimes chemotherapy medication.
Yeah, right. Methotrexate.
And when you look at this, right. I mean, I have people that use these things, and you know this better than even most people in the world. As a pharmacist, the cost of these DMARDs, some of these are $10, $15 plus $1,000 a month with, get this, a 30% success rate.
Oh my God!
Now, if you didn't have health insurance, would you be willing to drop $15,000 a month for something that had a 30% success rate?
Right.
Now let's not get into the conversation of the business of medicine.
Oh, that's another horrific.
Right,
oh my God.
Isn't it crazy? It's the only industry where you have something done or you receive something, and you would never even think about asking the cost of it before it happens.
Right.
So, again, that's a whole other conversation. But now let's talk about autoimmunity. So I've been in this world for 20 years, and I originally cut my teeth in the world of children on the autistic spectrum. So I had these kids walk in, and this actually, we're going to get to this at the end, but I was actually a part of a vaccine damage case where a little boy received a vaccine that night. He had a grand mal seizure, and for the rest of his life, he lives a different life. And so this got me into the question of like what's happening inside the body. So Western medicine says your immune system has gone rogue. If it's attacking your brain, we call it MS. If it's attacking your thyroid, we call it Hashis or Graves, your joints, rheumatoid. There's now upwards of over 100 different of these.
Hey, Doc, hang on to that thought. Hang on to that thought. We got to take a commercial break. Yeah, we got to take a commercial break. Okay, great. We're talking to Dr. Greg Mongeon. I think I said that right, of the Mongeon Clinic. We're going to continue with Dr. Greg and autoimmunity, and hopefully we'll get to a little bit about vaccinations on the bright side. Don't go away. We are back on the bright side. We're talking to Dr. Greg Mongeon of the Mongeon Clinic. Dr. Greg, before we went to break, you were talking about autoimmunity. If you could finish up talking about telling us your thoughts of that, and then I want to hear the story of the autism of the kid with. That's very intriguing to me. So continue with your thoughts on autoimmunity, and then we'll transition to the vaccine.
Yeah, I want to shift right now because in almost 20 years of treating autoimmunity, I believe that I had an aha moment. And again, I look at the same labs that people's general practitioners look at, and we look at them from a different standpoint. So the medical claim is that the immune system has gone rogue. Now, if listeners have blood labs available, and this is one of the most typical blood labs that I see abnormalities in, it's called your CBC, complete blood count, and one of the most common things that I see with autoimmunity is this. So I'm going to talk just very briefly and as elementary as I can about the immune system. So our immune system, when there's an invader, a parasite or a bacteria or a virus, our immune system deploys its own troops. And one of that is our white blood cells. So our white blood cells spike up. So if you have an active infection, your white blood cells might be like 8, 9, or 10 on your CBC, and then their job is to go and kill the invader. And then if they do their job, they kill the invader, they drop back to normal. However, if there's an invader and our white blood cells are not able to do their job, we lose troops. So one of the most common lab findings that I've seen in thousands of cases of autoimmunity is low white blood cell counts. And in the world of functional medicine, and I'm going to geek out on you guys a little bit here, if you have your blood labs, go to the CBC, and the very top marker is called WBC. If that number is 5 or less, in the world of functional medicine, that is indicative of a chronic infection. What it means is that your body's immune system has been overwhelmed, and it is petered out. And here was my aha moment with autoimmunity, a war analogy. One thing that we never want to talk about with war is something called friendly fire. And that usually happens when our troops are overwhelmed by the enemy, and we can't identify them, and we are in a firefight. And for whatever reason, we've identified a good guy as a bad guy, and we pull the trigger.
So
I have found...
You see that as the root cause? You see that as the root cause?
In over 99.5% of the thousands and thousands of cases that I treat, chronic hidden infection, parasites, Lyme, Epstein-Barr, cytomegalovirus, is the reason why your immune system can't do what it's designed to do. So, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, does this chronic infection always have to happen from a pathogen, or can it happen from food, or from some leaky gut, or something from coming in from the intestine, or
it's
endotoxicity?
Funny you say that. Dude, you're right, because, so I would say in about 90% of those cases, I see leaky gut. So the question is, like, who's the chicken, who's the egg here, right? And, like, I'm not a huge believer in a true, outside of, like, I ate shellfish and my face blows up, even in food allergies, because this can be no different than your body starting to form. It's just, its job is forming all kinds of these immunoglobulins. So if you eat too many, so for example, I have a young boy in my practice on the autism spectrum, and he loves blueberries. He eats probably a pint a day.
Doctor, I think we're losing you, Dr. Greg. Oh my gosh.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you have a young boy in your practice.
Yep. So he would eat about a pint of blueberries a day, and a local clinician said, let's run a food sensitivity test. And lo and behold, what showed up for him as a sensitivity was blueberries. Now, I really don't think he was sensitive to blueberries. I believe that he was in a immunocompromised state.
Load? Is this load? Is this like a load condition, like an environmental, like an immune load? He's overloaded?
Right. Right. Too much of the same thing. So our approach then is to figure out what the root cause is, address these chronic infections. And I live in Minnesota, so I see the amount of chronic Lyme disease that I see. And by the way, traditional testing for Lyme disease, the ELISA and the Western blot test, is less than 50% sensitive. So there are now labs that are giving us much more sensitive tests. So when we see that root cause, now I want to be really clear. There's a lot of quote-unquote clinicians in this world that are like, we can cure autoimmune disease. And here's the reality. That really doesn't happen. It's one of these things that we put into remission. I don't want to give people false hope. Ultimately, what I tell people is I want you to have so much vitality. We treat people, not numbers, but we have to know what we're going after.
I love that. The vitality idea, like we should be helping people feel vital and strong, more vital and strong, and less about changing their numbers.
Unquestionably. Now, people that are listening to this right now are like, oh my gosh, like I have a known autoimmune disease, or maybe, so I live about 80 miles from the prestigious Mayo Clinic.
Right.
And I get all kinds of Mayo Clinic dropouts, which means I've had all these tests. They can't find anything. I mean, this just doesn't make sense. So then, we look at the labs through a different lens. And two, why we get the success that we do is that we have people that show up that are willing to do the work that it takes to get well. And this is not just our patients. Most importantly, it's their support system. I would say that probably 70+% of my patients are females, and I giggle because females are actually humble enough to say, hey, there's something wrong and I should do something about it. And I, as lovingly as I do, I ask this question. If they're married, I say I typically see one of two types of husbands on your side of the court. Husband A is this husband that's super supportive, and he's like, babe, I'll change my diet too. I'm supportive. We'll do whatever we can do to get you through this. And then, unfortunately, on the other side, there's husband B that's like, hey, you're going to try this again, and how much is this one going to cost? And oh my gosh, here we go again. And people can obviously be in the middle of that spectrum, though it's important for us to know the whole picture and who's on the team, because if you don't have support, if you're a woman listening to this right now and you don't have the right support system on the home front, my heart breaks for you. Yet also sometimes there's just not a good understanding and a good explanation to your partner so that they know what's going on.
Dr. Greg, we're going to run out of time here, but I want to talk about the vaccine real quick. But before we get into that, give an autoimmune sufferer, an autoimmune patient, excuse me, an autoimmune patient first three things that they need to do.
That's so good. So number one, we have to learn how to breathe. This costs absolutely nothing. So So breathing is so important. So there's many breath techniques. I'm a huge fan of box breathing. Simply, you breathe in for a count of 4, you hold the breath in for a count of 4, you breathe out for a count of 4, and then you hold the breath out for a count of 4. That's one cycle. Do 20 cycles of that twice a day, and it actually has the ability to shift from, we don't have time to go into the whole shift of the nervous system understanding, but it allows your body to heal. That's number one. Number two, you've got to hydrate. Everyone knows this, yet so many people don't do this. And we could have a whole episode on water and the best kinds of water.
How much?
The end of the day.
How much?
You know, I shoot for between 100 and 128 ounces. Now, if somebody's 100 pounds, that's going to be a lot for them. So, there's the mantra of half your body weight in ounces. But look at what you're doing, because that's going to be a huge aspect of that. And then I would say that the other aspect is gratitude. What are you grateful for in your life? What are you writing down? Look outside and what is it? Because many times when we don't feel well, all we can think about is the things that are going wrong. So I'd love to have a little shift in their perspective as to what's happening appropriately.
That's awesome. Breathing, hydration, and gratitude. When you're hydrating, do you like distilled water? What form of water do you suggest?
I'm a distilled guy. I mean, I live in an area where radiation is super high. So yeah, distillation, and again, we could do a whole episode on this, but distillation, according to my latest understanding, is the gold standard for what we should be drinking and cooking with.
What about electrolyte loss or vitamins, loss of water-soluble vitamins? What do you think about that when people start hydrating?
Yep, that's really important. One of the key products that we like to use are good chelated minerals in our programs. I feel like it's a backbone for the body to heal well, and also for drinking, mineral or electrolyte depleted water sources, we have to have those bases. So I'm also a fan of not washing your vegetables, buying organic vegetables and not washing them to get some of those things, using
hygiene hypothesis,
salt and whatnot. Right.
Yeah. You're familiar with the hygiene hypothesis?
100%, man.
Okay, Greg. Yeah, we talk about that a lot. There's so much I want to talk to you about, Dr. Greg. You're definitely going to have to come back on because we have about a minute. Can you tell us about this story real quick about the kid with the autism, the vaccination?
Yes. So really quickly, I just want to talk because there's a big conversation right now about vaccines, and what I want people to understand is there is something called the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. It is known that there can be injuries from vaccines. Now, even this is from New England Journal of Medicine, March 11th, 2021, and this isn't about my little kiddo. So my little kiddo received an MMR, had a complete adverse reaction. Guess what? His family was given $200,000. Now, respectfully, whoop-de-doo, the kid's going to wear diapers for the rest of his life. So I'd love to talk more about vaccines.
We're going to have you back on. Doc, we'll have to have you back on. Tell how do people get a hold of you if they need to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so go to drgreg.health. drgreg.health. In the upper .health in the upper right corner, I do a free phone consult. If someone wants to chat with me, I'd love to talk with you.
Dr. Greg, stay on the line, will you?